Good morning, class. This is Food Crops reporting from my spare room at my place where I have a seed starting setup that I'd like to talk about. That's our topic this week. And I'm just going to real quick run through my home setup. It's a little bit different from what you guys might have at home. I know some of you are experienced in seed starting already, and it's certainly different from anything you have at work if you're doing this professionally. This is just a real simple, quite cheap setup that I've cobbled together over the years at home. It used to be bigger, but I recently moved and downsized it. It still generally works for what I'm doing. So, first things first, I have lights, as you can see. You must have lights. A sunny windowsill is not going to cut it. Not only is a sunny windowsill going to be indirect light, which is, the equivalent to deep shade outside, even if you think you have a really sunny house. Um, Remember, the days are shorter in winter too. They're starting to get longer. I mean, this is the very end of January now, but they're still not as long as your plants are really gonna need. They lack intensity and duration. Most people would have these lights on a timer. I did for years until I realized that my timer didn't work very well. And I got up so early for my various jobs anyway that it was just easier to flip a switch or even pull a plug every morning and then do it again before bed than it was to try to troubleshoot a timer. So now I just, switch them on and off when I, get up and then when I go to bed again. And it works pretty well. Seedlings do like a good, 14 to 16 hours of light a day. That is something to keep in mind. Do not assume that a day length is long enough. Now, I want to point out that these are adjustable, they're on chains. I have hooks on here that, I mean, I did all this. This is just junk I've built. I can raise and lower these as much as I want. So as my plants get taller, I can raise it. Right now, though, because my plants are small, I want to keep the lights pretty close to the surface of the plants. So that's that. You can see I've already started some cabbage, some Chinese cabbage, some tomatoes, and this is actually butterfly milkweed right here. So then these are cuttings. I'm starting some fig cuttings. We'll talk about this more when we get to fruit, but I took some dormant cuttings off of a fig, which it's either Cadota or a similar variety. We'll get to that later. And stuck them in there. They benefit from the same conditions as the seedlings. Now, another thing, heat mat. These things, this was like 13 bucks on Amazon. They're more expensive if you get them in the store usually. It's just a plug-in heating device. It's like a little hot pad for the plants. It does a couple of things. It speeds up germination like crazy, and it also keeps damp, cold soil from falling victim to damp off fungus. Damp off is not a single fungus, it's a combination of fungi and fungus like organisms that will rot the roots of seedlings and also rot the stem right at soil level so that your seedling just goes falls over. It's warmth is one thing you can do to prevent damp off. Another thing is to always use sterile or close to it planting media. This is a bag of soilless mix that says it's for seeds and cuttings. That just means that, it's based on peat, perlite, vermiculite. It's not true soil, it's not mineral soil from outdoors. That usually harbors a lot of pathogens like damp off pathogens that will affect your seedlings. You can use outdoor soil, people do it. One way to do it is to mix in a lot of compost and make sure it's extremely well drained and fluffy. I've never done that, but some people have success with it. Another way to use outdoor soil is to sterilize it, and that usually means baking it in your oven. I've never done it, but I've heard it smells really interesting. So, those of you with significant others in the house who don't always go along with your project might want to think twice about it. Like I said, I haven't personally tried it. So, I mentioned you need sterile potting media or close enough. Just get some that's bagged and, advertised as good for seedlings. Um, you'll want containers of some kind. These are just recycled bedding flower pots from NCTC, actually. These are recycled cell packs, we call them. They fit in very nicely to a flat, which is about 2 by 1 foot. You can reuse these as many times as you like, provided you bleach them between uses. Do not run them through your dishwasher. The plastic is not heat tolerant and they will melt. And they won't wreck your dishwasher, but you will wreck the pots. I just use bleach. I use a 10% bleach solution. I soak them in it for a while and then air dry them and don't rinse them. And I think that's about it for my supplies. I guess the only other thing to note is masking tape on the sides of these things allows me to write the name and date of whatever I'm starting. That's really important. Otherwise, you will mix stuff up. And in spite of that, I always mix a few things up anyway every year. Like here, let's see. I labeled Best Boy Tomato January 14th. Good. Oh, yeah. The only other thing, the clear plastic. I always cover my individual cell pack pots with clear plastic when I start seeds. This holds in moisture while they're getting going and holds in warmth. This is kind of a drafty spare room, and I get much better generation if they're covered. You can buy a humidity dome that covers up your entire flat. I don't like those because I usually have a mix of a zillion different plants underneath it that all germinate at different times. And if I try to take the dome off while some things are still trying to germinate, they just never get the start they need. Meanwhile, other things get too big and floppy underneath the dome. When you do take off the plastic or the dome, depending on what you use, make sure to do it a little at a time. Like just crack it, leave it for a day. Crack it, take it off a little more and prop it up, leave it for another day. You got to ease your plants into normal indoor air. Otherwise, they will shrivel up. They'll get shocked by the sudden drop in humidity and temperature. And I actually did that to some of these cabbages and tomatoes. And you see, I lost my cotyledons. Most of my plants are still alive, but some of them suffered because I was too quick to rip off the plastic. All right, I'm going to stop now and I'll make another video about actually starting seeds.